So now I'm installing the hub carriers, the hubs, the drive shafts, the rear drive shafts. I've just finished the right hand side. That's all done. You can just see if I have a little, let's have a little dabble at getting through there. You can see the refurbished drive shaft all bolted up. The hub carriers all torqued up and in there. I suppose the thing to mention here was the difference between the 16-inch hub carrier and the two-wheel drive and the 14-inch Syncro hub carrier. This is a chunkier, heftier item. I suppose it's there for a little bit heavier duty, really, for the 16-inch Syncro, which goes with some of the other strengthening that the 16-inch had as well. One of the other things I'll just point out as well, if you're having your, it's obvious, but I'll say it anyway, if you're having your trailing arms galvanised, or anything galvanised that's got threaded holes in there for bolts and whatever, you need to tap out the threads afterwards, because they'll be all plugged up with galv. So one of the things to do there is make sure that before you do any galvanising of any components, any threaded parts, you've got the corresponding thread tap, so that you can get in there and clean the galvanising out of the threads. Otherwise you won't be able to get the bolts in. Obvious stuff really, but hopefully it'll help you. Anyway, next up will be the brakes. Right, so that's the rear discs installed on the van on both sides. Right, as I mentioned before in the first video, the donor van came with a rear disc conversion kit. Let's quickly go over that again. These are most of the parts that came with the van on its original kit. It was a 280mm single disc, solid disc. I keep on saying that. There's one of the didn't work very well at all. The whole thing really, hardly surprising when you look. That's gone right down to the backing plate. But there you go. These calipers and these carriers for a solid disc. Like I said, it didn't work. It was all seized up. Even the handbrake cables were seized solid with mud and crud and whatever else. So basically, I had to look at doing something different. The only part of the conversion that came with the van that you can't see there is still on my one, which is the plate that's mounted to the bearing carrier, or the hub carrier, and that was what the actual caliper carrier mounted to. Let's go and have a quick look at that. So that's what I'm talking about there. That's the plate off of the original conversion kit. This adapter bracket that bolts up to the caliper carrier and the hub carrier bearing mount, or whatever you want to call it. So that's the only bit of the original kit that I'm currently using on the van now. So as for all the other parts, start off with the calipers. I showed you them in the first video. I already had them. They were on another project vehicle that I've got. I've had for a number of years, which is currently in storage. They're Audi S8 A8 calipers off of an early Audi A8 or S8. Spec for a 280 by 22mm disc. I suppose an interesting point to note as well is that they are actually used, if you look on the Etka online catalogue for Audi and VW, they're actually spec'd also for the early armoured version of the A8, which used a 280mm by 22 rear disc little thing that was quite interesting. The pads are the same, are the pads that go with that caliper when it's used with a 280mm disc. These ones are this flavour here is the red EBC version, red stuff EBC. Discs are also spec'd for an early A8 S8 Audi as well, 280 as I say by 22. And one of the things I had to do to get these to fit, I also had to have the hub turned down underneath there, so they're actually the same sort of width now, or same size almost exactly as the front hubs now, so they fit nice and snugly into the back of those discs. Right, the only other thing as well is obviously I couldn't use for caliper carriers, I couldn't use the original caliper carrier because it wouldn't have taken a 22mm thick disc. So I had to do a little bit of trawling around on the internet And one of the things you realise when you do that most caliper carriers, at least in Europe anyway, seem to be made by TRW. So after a little bit of research, I came up with these ones. Basically, they originally come from. They're used on A3s, Seat Leons, and Golfs as well. All of them basically that have the ventilated rear 253mm disc. So they fit lovely into this where I've got these now, and yeah, so that was quite handy. That there's a part number for them. Hang on a minute. Yeah, there you go. BDA TRW BDA 621. That's the TRW part number for them, and they're not handed either. You just use either one on either side of the vehicle. So that's it. Rear brakes sorted for the moment. I'm not going to I probably won't keep them. I might actually change them. Plus, I might need them calipers back anyway for the other vehicle that when I start working on that. But I'm thinking of some other versions as well that I could use. But these ones get me out of jail for the moment. Give me a decent working setup on the rear. So that I can carry on, because like I say, the ones that came with the donor vehicle weren't really a viable option to carry on with. So yeah, okay, so that's that bit of the van done. Next up is to mount the fuel pump. Yeah, I'll do that next, I think.